library is very important in this place, because you find that most of the inhabitants around this place are youth and children, and the school-going persons. And with that, I think it's very critical to have an information center whereby people can get all the information they need, people can interact, people can come together, and also it also helps in cohesion of the tribes, especially after the 2007 post-election violence. Communities were sort of a bit divided, but with the facility here, it's like a meeting point to all communities. So with that, community are able to gel well with other communities, and in the process, we are building a good nation.
I remember the first time I heard about the Leadership Award program. I was really glad because I was experiencing challenges at home. Challenges like we don't have access to materials, like reading materials. So the Leadership Awards program gets in changing the lives of the youth through the payment of their school fees, through facilitating the purchase of the necessary materials that the young leaders, the volunteers need in the academic life. It's all about like supporting the child in the best capacity to feel confident to pursue their dreams. So to me, I got the books and I was really glad because I could achieve my dreams through the studying the books that the Leadership Awards program facilitated in my academic life. So I always believe books change lives, and I've seen my life changing tremendously, and I'm really glad, and I'm always glad to have the same impact being portrayed to other young children in the Mathare slum.
Thank you. I think I'll share the story of those two guys. The one who's singing is also a Maisa youth who has grown through the system, and he's today doing music, and he's earning a living through that. But then I'll also share the story of Samuel. Samuel joined the organization as a young boy. He comes from a humble background. He participated in the activities, and he still does up to date. And through that, he was able to get a leadership award, because if you look at our system, it's based on you do something, Maisa will do something. If you do nothing, Maisa will do nothing. He participated in sports. He organized a team. He was also a player in one of the teams. When he was joining senior level, the O levels, he was able to get a leadership award, just the way he was saying in the video. And by the time he completed his O levels, he was among the top students from the school, coming from that humble background. And today he's a student at the university. And this is, one positive story that we can talk about. But then one good thing is that there's a link there now between sports and education, and also between sports and social life, like the singer who was doing the song for the video. In terms of girls, we are trying to promote them in a way that if you look at our governance system, it has to be 50-50 when it comes to elective positions. We have set up league committees in all the 16 areas where we work, and in these league committees, the young people, who are team leaders themselves, they sit together. They have to elect a team that will be like in charge of running sports activities and community service activities in their area. But then one rule is 50% of that has to be different gender. And for every year, if, for example, the chairperson for this zone for this year is a female, then for next year it has to be male. So they keep on changing like that. And when it's the same people who come to the sports council and the community service council, and then we have now 4 from sports and 5 from the community service who come together and sit in the executive council, which is the highest decision-making body, I would say, in the organization. So we besides promoting young boys, we also work with young girls. Even though, due to culture and so many other things, the percentage of girls is is not as big as compared to boys. We have around 5,000 young girls in the program, but then the boys are more, they're around 14,000. And this brings to a total of around 20,000 young people that we work with for the last year and for the previous years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, do you want to share a story, a powerful story? Or we could play Ricardo's.
Yeah, I mean, got another video of an inspirational young man. I just thought I'd quickly add though to Henry's stuff, because for me, whenever I go to Mathari, it is again an eye-opening and inspirational experience every single time. The amount of people you meet, but what sort of sums that up is perhaps an aspiration that ought to be built into Majid Bass's theory of change as well, which is perfectly possible, and that's that MISA will achieve complete success when the next president of Kenya is a girl from Mathari, and I think that's, you know, it's a realistic, honestly, a realistic goal. I think, you know, there are graduates from the MISA system that have gone on to international universities, are now counsellors, they're lawyers, they have a range of degrees and that sort of stuff, and so it is absolutely achievable that even from the most humble of backgrounds, these young people are doing fantastic things through sport under Henry and David's overall management. But yes, we've similarly, I brought along a video just of an interesting character by the name of Ricardo. Again, a story replicated so many times around the world, and there are so many different stories of young people doing some phenomenal things. But in summary, Ricardo got in trouble with the authorities, ended up going to prison, and spending a number of years there before coming out and becoming a boxing coach with one of the programs that we support in London, the Urban Stars program that I was talking about a little earlier. So.
Yes, please.
I know it's the other way. That's a nice one too, but it is the other Ricardo one.
My name is Ricardo Williams and I'm from South London. I used to be involved in some bad stuff that got me in a lot of trouble, and it just progressed to worse stuff, bigger stuff, and, you know, criminal records, and then eventually it went off till I got arrested, went to prison for a few years. Fortunately, I've got through it now. I'm now a boxing coach with Urban Stars, and yeah, my life's changed.
The Urban Stars project is basically primarily looking to work with young people through sports and physical activities to disrupt gang involvement. And we're funded through laureates to deliver the Urban Stars program. Right now we're in the Lillian Bayliss Old School, where we've been championing a lot of sports activities such as boxing, dance, culture arts activities, volunteering programs, and getting young people to take a lead in a lot of the activities we do.
Block, 2 shots. Block, 2 shots.
Well, coaching people, helping people, it gives you a sense of purpose. People start to look up to you, and I think from that you get to realise that if I mess up, I let a lot of people down, not just myself.
But he's been there and he's done it, so, you know, for him, he's been in the situation they probably have. He's come from a background similar to what they have, so that is that role model, that is that person that they're looking up to. If they're engaging in sport, then, as they say, it's all good.
He always makes the lesson fun, yeah, and if like someone don't do it, you're told you get push-ups, so I know not to go that side.
Well, he's a fair teacher. Right? He'll let you do certain things, but he's strict, but he's fair.
2 shots. Slip. Good, brilliant. Good stuff, Matty. Doing your homework, improving.
It definitely did change my life. I don't like to say, but who knows, without Urban Stars, I probably might have even ended up back in prison.
it's the journey and the change is just immense, and it's really good to see, and it's really proud that someone can do that and turn their life around, and that shines in what he's doing now with his own boxing club and developing young people.
It feels quite good to be looked at as someone that other people look up to now instead of being looked down on.
It's really beautiful. I think that just kind of renders you speechless. Beautiful, beautiful clip, really. I'm opening it out to all of you. So we've been having this discussion, and the question I'm going to be putting out to all of you is, you've heard Henry and Ned speak about the power of sport in reaching out in interventions, different varied interventions, including crime prevention. And we've heard some powerful stories, and of course, backed by research, by evidence of the kind of impact that's happened. Also, what Amod has put in perspective regarding understanding juvenile delinquency, understanding crime from a perspective, also understanding that sport cannot be the panacea for all problems, really. So just opening out this question, therefore, from your perspective, is crime prevention a byproduct of sport for development activities? Or do you think that sport can be concertedly used for crime prevention? You got my question? Would crime prevention be a byproduct, or can it be concertedly used for crime prevention? Yes.
My name is Ari Koivu from Liike Sports and Development from Finland. Came a long way. Thank you very much for the good presentations. However, there wasn't so much of a new, but the videos were exciting. But I'll fully agree in both ways that the prevention of crime through sports is important. But at the moment, I think we are facing a much bigger problems now. At the moment, like if you have 500,000 people living in Matare, and you have 1.25 billion people over here, so it means that the number of children is increasing and increasing and increasing. And I've been working for about 12, 13 years in Tanzania, considering especially sports for development through schools. And the education system sucks. And I have talked with quite a lot of Indians already over here, and each and everyone told me the same thing, that your primary school and the education system is no good. So indeed, I'm still thinking about in a wider perspective that sport could be kind of like an example, and we as a sports people could go together for the whole educational sector, for the Ministry of Treasury, for the Ministry of Education, to tell them that unless you do something about the education, the level of education is poor. So why would the parents would like to put their kids to school if they don't learn anything? So they rather put them on the streets to make money in a varieties of ways. So instead of doing a sport, you do some nice stories over there, yeah, definitely. But the number of these vulnerable kids is increasing dramatically all the time, dramatically. So in order, if they don't get education, if they don't get a job, so where do they end up? On the streets. If there are 10,000, it's not a problem. But then when there is 100 million poor kids who are hungry and who have nothing to lose, so then there's very little to do with sports. So I think we should unite all together, each and every one of us, and just walk into the ministries and tell that this can't go on anymore.
The issue is that education, you said, and probably many speakers would have said that the education is pretty bad so far as primary education is concerned. It's not really giving what it should give. See, I feel that why I take it back from this conference basically is that, see, you divide the entire child's life in two parts. One could be academic, intellectual, or the learning part of it. Learning in the academic sense, knowledge, whatever. And the other part could be entirely physical. You know, the physical fatigue, the physical engagement. The child is put to some kind of rigor while the child is growing. And that's very, very important. Some organized activity. As I said, that organized activity could be a gang, could be a team. And even if it is not a team, some organized activity. See, I find because nearly 4,000 juveniles have gone through the home I'm talking about. I spoke about that home this afternoon where I learned about 76 children. Out of 4,000 youth who have gone from that, and very serious crimes most of them have committed in the city of Delhi. I think not even 1%, less than 1% really went back into criminality. For the simple reason that when they come and we create an intervention, the intervention of my organization has very equal measure of physical and intellectual activity. And then that intervention brings about the change. They need to be engaged, they need to be told, and it happens. And actually, it really depends. If you leave the child or leave the youth on the street, the situation, talking about the second situation, and then allow that person to be wandering here and there, drifting here and there, decidedly he will pick up the wrong things. He will pick up a situation which is easier to go and easier to go along. And then the boy is absolutely wonderful. He's absolutely normal, no problem. I mean, he's like my son. My son is almost like him. There's no difference at all. But that was the time he was like that. The other boy, you know, he left his home at the age of 12. He somehow disappeared. He landed up in a particular home in the Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow is a place. And from there, he ran away very violently along with other 36 boys. And drifting away, finally, you know, 10 years, he went here and there, came to one of our homes and finally my home. And now working with me, 2 of them. Now, I find both of them absolutely normal, absolutely easy. There is no problem at all. It all depends. The children committing very serious crimes, mind you, I have a very different thought about them because I deal with them day in, day out. And they are as normal as anybody else. The circumstances they create, and if you are able to bring about some change in circumstances where physical activity has a role to play. So let us make it slightly enlarged. Instead of calling it only sports, make it a little more than sports. You get the point. I mean, that is how I look at it. Okay.
Would you like to answer that?
I'd just like to, a couple of points. The first is on a smaller scale, just referencing what you were saying there, Amod. There's actually a book by a guy called John Ratey, Sparks, that many people might have read, that actually points to evidence that highlights the impact that physical activity has on academic achievement and the results that kids get from in their maths and literacy classes post-activity versus those who have been unable. But so it's a great book to read if anybody is interested. But the second, just coming back to your point, is definitely this is an issue that we see as an organisation around the world, and that's this issue of siloed government policy, and the fact that we find that many different organisations, many different governments certainly see. You talk to individual ministers, they'll see the value of sport. Again, it's intrinsic, but you know, then you back that up with research. You know, and we see lots of them implementing sport. There's a sport program in the education department. There's a sport program in the justice department. There's a sport program in the health department. But because of the nature of siloed government, the nature of politics, very few of those are actually joined up and talking to one another. And in fact, I agree with you that it is a responsibility and a role of the sector as a whole to come together to encourage governments to look at the impact that a justice program has on health policy, or an education program has on the propensity of those young people ultimately to end up in jail. The stories are definitely there. The examples are without doubt there and presented in video form, in personal stories, etc., etc. That's not the problem. Perhaps the problem is the storytellers are lacking. There's not enough storytellers taking those stories to the highest levels of government, and there are 2 ways that we combat that. Firstly, in uniting more and more of the organisations that are collected here together, utilising perhaps the patronage of the likes of the UN, etc., to take that message to those higher authorities or spokespeople. And certainly from a Laureate's perspective, that's what we're trying to do in terms of engaging sporting ambassadors, sporting heroes, to utilise their personal experience of the programmes that they visit, the stories that they hear personally from young people, match that up with the evidence, the academic basis for this is what is actually happening, these are the results, these are the economic returns, and taking those to the highest level of government. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right that more needs to be done at that level to highlight these incredibly impressive stories.
I believe that it works both ways. As all of us are aware that sports, just as Henry mentioned, that you have to play with rules. So the first thing you need to learn while working with people who are more prone towards these things is to enforce discipline and to inculcate some fair play things in them. So I think it's a byproduct more because we deal with life skills, which is important for them to make informed choices, to deal with pressure situations, and to be in control of their lives. So that's a byproduct. But in some cases, I do feel that you need some targeted intervention to work with this population, which are marginalized, which are poor, or socially excluded people. So they need more counseling, they need more hand-holding. So I think it works both ways.
As Ned mentioned about a little bit about the research and academic research, at the moment I just have a question about how to evaluate or how to clarify the evidence of the effectiveness of using sports for crime prevention, because sometimes there are lots of external factors except sports activities. So is there any clear methodology to evaluate in a good way to show the evidence? As an academic side, I think it's very important to show in academic research how the sports can be effective in a way for to use for the crime prevention.
Sure, there are many different ways. I think one of the challenges you've already highlighted is the issue of causality, and in the context of wider social influences on young people that you can't necessarily measure, and the real challenge is trying to extract, okay, what is it that sport has actually done from a measurement perspective, and what is those other external factors. And the reality is that you're probably not ever going to be able to extract it from all those other aspects, which is why intrinsically we have to make sure that it works in conjunction with all those other factors and opportunities and programs and systems that are in place. There are many methodologies to try and measure this stuff. We ourselves have invested for some time now in a product called In Focus, which is an attempt to help projects and programs to develop their own management systems, their own systems of data collection, to measure their impact on their communities. What's really interesting in that process is the first bit of the In Focus system is the refinement of a theory of change, which really just asks the question: what change are we actually trying to make as a program? And I'd go so far as to say as much as 75, even 80% of the programs that we support around the world that are going through this system, within those programs, if you ask 10 people what change they were trying to make in that program, you'd get 10 separate answers. So the first steps of this In Focus approach have been to refine what the theory of change is. You'll also get many programs that are certainly completely agree with the idea of measuring. In fact, they measure stat loads. In fact, they have 15 different questionnaires that they roll out to kids at every opportunity and collect almost. They're drowning in data. They collect lots of data, they just don't know what to do with it, or indeed why they're collecting it. So the system looks at refining those questionnaires to make sure that any data that is being collected is fully compliant with and focused on the defined theory of change. And then the system looks at creating indicators for those theories of change. And the indicators from different programs around the world will all be very, very different. From our perspective on a global basis, our intention and our hope is that at some point in the future, we will be able to have enough programs around the world using the same system In Focus, having gone through the same approach, that we will be able to, on a local level, be able to recognize that indicators are specific to a particular program and the social context in which that program exists. But at the same time, from a global funder perspective, we will be able to aggregate similar indicators to be able to arrive at a much more generic value of sport's impact on crime, for instance, sport's impact on AIDS education, sport's impact on education and employment, for instance. That's our hope. It's a little bit far off at the moment, but there are certainly a number of programs who are going through now this whole In Focus approach that I hope will arrive at defining standards for measurement and evaluation in this particular sector.
Thank you so much. I think we're ready to conclude here. So, fantastic, really. A lot of things coming out for here, a lot of food for thought. One thing that comes out very essentially is that the potential for change is a core strength for all youth. Because you've heard stories of transformation, you've heard of children who've been in conflict with law, who've gone on ahead to lead more positive lives. And this is a strength. This strength, the core strength, is a strength that can be built upon. It's a cause for optimism. It means that we can influence the life paths of all children in a positive direction, and there's a high scope for reintegration, rehabilitation, and repurposing young lives. I think the questions that were raised by all of you are very pertinent, and especially when we talk about that how can we're not looking at sport or sport-led programming to be panacea for all issues that may exist. But it has to be along with other strategies that work in varied areas. And the gentleman, Masood, what he brought up, that for the socially excluded, you need targeted interventions. So yes, crime prevention can be a byproduct of sport programming, and there would be spaces where you would need targeted intervention, which is extremely context-specific and person-specific. I would like to thank you all for being such a proactive and involved audience. You've been listening very patiently. And I would like to conclude the session with a quote which never ceases to inspire me. Nelson Mandela's beautiful quote, "Sport has a power to change the world." And that's the reason all of us are here, believing in the power of play. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. And we've been talking about social inclusion. We're talking about cost effectiveness of sports programming. And every line of Mandela's quote really validates the work we're doing. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair. It is more powerful than government in breaking down racial barriers. With that thought, we conclude the session. Thank you all so very much, and thank you, panelists, for your shots.